Hey, let's welcome in former Oriole pitcher and current Oriole broadcaster on Masson and the Orioles radio network. We hope we get to see him and hear him again sometime real soon. Here's Big Ben McDonald from the Bayou. How you doing, Big Ben?
Steve, I'm doing good, man. Like everybody else, we've been doing our part, social distancing. Thank the good Lord, my family's healthy. We're all healthy right now, including my mom and my dad. I know it's been a tough time around the country, and I hope you and everybody up in the Baltimore area is hanging in there through this difficult time. And I just believe, like you do, that there's a light at the end of this tunnel, man. We're going to get back to some type of baseball, Major League Baseball, Oriole baseball here in the near future. I don't know what it's going to look like, but I'm confident at some point in time this summer we're going to be playing baseball again.
Well, that sounds good to me, but let's talk some baseball. And now, Ben, before the game shut down in March, in addition to your broadcasting roles, you were in camp as one of the guest instructors this year. That had to be pretty cool. What was it like for you?
That was really cool for me. I mean, obviously what I do in my job, broadcasting for the Orioles, it's good to get to know the players, and it's good to know their personalities, what they like to do. And I was able to visit with them both on and off the field. And plus, also from an analytical standpoint, understanding, especially the pitchers, like what kind of pitches they really rely on, what do they like to do. So it was fun for me to talk to Michael Givens and Richard Blyer and Hunter Harvey and all those guys just to see what they were thinking, and Wojciechowski, and hey, I throw a two-seamer, a four-seamer. That way we get on the air and we start talking about these guys. I have an idea of how they want to attack, what their repertoire is, how they want to attack each hitter, and I can actually play that into a radio broadcast or a TV broadcast and give the fans something to look for.
Ben, having watched young pitchers with the Orioles and throughout the game, for your whole life, especially in your broadcasting role, when something goes wrong for a young pitcher, is it often more simply the execution of what he was trying to do? Can it also be pitch calling, sequencing, things we may not think about?
Well, it could be a lot of things, I mean, when we talk about things that go wrong for a young pitcher, I mean, the first thing that jumps in my head right away is, how is he attacking? Does he have a game plan when the game begins? Now, that game plan may change from at bat to at bat with a particular hitter, but is there a game plan? And that was always my struggles as a 21-year-old coming to the big leagues. I really didn't have a game plan when the game began because I didn't know the hitters. I had a college coach that I loved, but he called every pitch for me. And so I really wasn't thinking about how I was setting up guys, what to look for. I just kind of whatever finger and number they put down, hey, I could throw it there. I could throw a breaking ball. I got to change up. And so I never really learned. So I want to know if there is a game plan when a game begins. Another thing is, I think for young guys is getting yourself enough of big league experience. And that's where a lot of these young Oriole pitchers are right now. For me, the light bulb never really flickered at the big league level until I got about 180 to 200 innings in at the big league level. Then that light bulb started to flicker a little bit for me. I started to have an understanding of, okay, I'm starting to see. I mean, you never learn it all, Steve. You know that. But you start to flicker a little bit and say, I've been in this situation before. I've faced this guy before. This is how I'm going to attack him in this situation. And then you even take it a step further to go, okay, I may pitch you to your strengths with 2 out, nobody on base. I'm going to feed you a good fastball knee high down. If you hit a double in the gap, so what? I'll get the next guy out. I'll get out of the inning. Whereas when you come to bat the next time, runners on second and third, it's 2 out, and I got to get you out. It means the ball game. I'm going to pitch you a totally different way. So it's just a learning curve where I thought it felt, about 200 innings for me before the light bulb really started to come on, and I had an idea of how I wanted to attack. So for young guys out there, it could be mechanical, it could be experience, it could be game plan. It could be a lot of those things that kind of get the wheels off a little bit. And that just more than likely takes some time at the big league level to kind of figure those things out.
So, Ben, an obvious link between you and Adley Rutschman. I mean, you were the first 1-1 pick for the Orioles in 1989, and 20 years later, he was the second. And I know you guys have met, talked a few times now. You got to be out on the field with him in Sarasota. I mean, what is the link like to be the only 2 people on the planet who can say they were 1-1 by the Orioles?
Well, it's a cool thing, and I hope it never happens again because that means the Orioles are doing better, right? But, I had a chance to see Adley as a freshman at the College World Series. I called the College World Series 3 years ago, and he stood out to me as a freshman. I saw him again as a sophomore, and he was surrounded by 2 or 3 other first-round picks in that lineup. So I just didn't know. I knew he was good, Steve, but I wanted to say, okay, I want to see you your junior year when you don't have as much protection in that lineup. I want to see what kind of numbers you put up at Oregon State, because it's a good school. They won the national title his junior year, and boy, he put up whopper numbers again, even without that protection. And that's when I knew Adley Rutschman was going to be the #1 pick in the country, because from a defensive standpoint, he always stood out to me like he could receive, he could block balls, he could catch. Ex-football players, so he's a gritty guy with a lot of competitiveness in him. And when he put those numbers up again, switch hitting, I knew he was a special guy. But I was impressed with him again as a young guy, 21, 22 in camp this year, how he presented himself. Like, he just wants to be one of the guys. He just wants to play baseball, but he's also like a sponge too, where he should be right now. Didn't talk a whole lot, but he had his ears open a lot. He was learning from some of the veteran guys out there. But again, the way he carried himself, to me, he fit in with everybody. He blended well. And that's what I love about this young Oriole team, Steve, and you've seen it too, is these guys actually like each other. They get along on and off the field. And that's why, while I think it's still going to be a few years down the road, Steve, I like the direction the Orioles are headed right now. I love some of these guys that are in the organization, what Mike Elias is doing, Brandon Hyde. But Adley Rutschman, make no mistake about it, to me, from what I saw again in camp, defensively, he can catch in the big leagues right now. There's no doubt in my mind. But I think he needs some at-bats at the minor league level, just to get some experience, learn how to be a professional guy. He bounced around a lot last year, Steve. As you know, he went from one place, he was there for 2 weeks, went over here to this place to the playoffs. And so he never really got grounded for an extended amount of time. And so I want to see him get grounded, at one place for a while. Let him just relax, let him settle in, and he's going to do good things. He's going to play for a while. There's no doubt in my mind.
So, Ben, how will we handle the fishbowl, the pressure of being 1-1? I mean, 20 years ago, when it happened to you in '89, you were looked at, all the Oriole fans wanted you to do is save the team and have them win. I mean, that's a lot on one man's shoulders, no matter how broad they are. And he's got some of that too.
Yeah, no doubt, And look, I'd be lying if I tell you I didn't feel that pressure. I did. When I walked into the clubhouse and Frank Robinson told me that I had to win 20 games this year or the Orioles weren't going to have a good season, and I was 22 years old. I didn't know how to pitch. It's like somebody just hit you in the head with a sledgehammer, And I heard those things, and I started to buy into what some of the media guys were saying. Well, I got to do this. And I tried to live up to those expectations. And quite frankly, my first year or two in the big leagues, I didn't enjoy myself because I felt so much pressure to go out there and try to perform, I think it's a little bit different for Adley. I think he's more mature than I was. He's able to accept it, and he realizes, and I had a talk with Adley too, and he'll tell you that, he asked me back at the College World Series this year when he was drafted, hey, what's it like, And I said, listen, Cal Ripken wrote me a letter. Cal Ripken Jr. wrote me a letter when I was going through negotiations way back in '89, and he wrote me a long letter, and I still have that letter. And it basically said was, I know your work ethic. I know you work hard. I want you to come be a part of this team. Continue to do the things that got you here. Don't try to do anything more than that, but I want you to be the first one in the ballpark every day. I want you to outwork everybody. And if you do that, the fans in Baltimore will take to you like no other. And that's what all I ever tried to do. Now my career didn't go exactly the way I wanted it to. Obviously, the injuries held me back, but I felt like I had a good relationship with the fans. I think that after some time, they began to understand me. And I think for Adley, it's going to be the same thing. And I told him the same thing. I said, dude, be the first one in the ballpark. Try to outwork everybody. Play the game like it's your last one every time. I said, if you do that, these blue-collar fans in Baltimore, they will love you, and they'll love you forever. And just go do that. And he kind of grinned at me because that's what I noticed about him in spring training. Did you ever see him, Steve, when he didn't have a smile on his face? Like, he is just enjoying being in an Oriole uniform. He's enjoying being a professional baseball player, and that's what I love most about him.
Yeah, he gives every impression he can handle it. You handled it. And what a great thing that Cal Jr. did with that letter. But I want you right now to take a few minutes to tell another story, which I have been privileged to hear one-on-one from you, but I'd like all our readers and viewers now to hear it. And that's the story of Cal calling pitches when he's playing shortstop and you're on the mound. Now, some fans, Ben, might think, and have expressed to me over the years, well, Cal wanted to be controlling. He wanted to be the manager. But what he was being, I think, and you tell me better, as a great teammate, and it wasn't anything about controlling. It was about helping you be a better pitcher. What happened?
Well, Cal, first full year in the big leagues, and Chris Hoyles was a young catcher, and obviously I didn't have a clue of what I was doing yet either. When I was on and doing my thing, I could win some ball games. Threw a shutout my very first start. You remember that, but there was also a lot of times I went home at night and banged my head on the wall and wondered why I couldn't have success or more consistent success at the big league level. The truth of the matter is I didn't know what I was doing, so finally, I'm sitting back with Chris Hoyles after a ball game, and it wasn't a good one for me, and we're just talking about some stuff, and Cal walks by, and he just kind of sticks his head in. He goes, "You guys don't really have a clue of what you're doing, do you?" And I turned around, I said, "Well, whatever gave you that impression?" Just kind of jokingly saying that, and I said, "No." I said, I don't, Junior. And Hoyles kind of looked at him and like, "Hey, if you got some advice, we'll be glad." And Junior said, "Well, I can help you guys out if you want some advice." I was like, who's not going to take advice from Cal Ripken Jr.? Absolutely. So he sat down. He said, "This is what we're going to do." And he told Chris Hoyles, he said, "I'm going to start calling your pitches from shortstop." I said, "How's that going to work?" He said, "Don't you worry about that. I'll have a sequence with Chris Hoyles, and we'll figure this out." He said, "Now, if you don't like the pitch and you don't like what I'm doing, then, of course, you shake it off and throw whatever you want to throw." So it wasn't like I had to do it, right? And so but I said, "Absolutely, let's try this." So it'd be funny. I'd be looking at the ball game. I'm looking in at Chris Hoyles trying to get the sign. I see Hoyles looking right over my right shoulder. There's Junior's out there at shortstop. The way he held his glove, the way he positioned his glove, maybe where he had his hand that particular time on his chest was going to be the pitch and the location. Well, this went on for the rest of the season, and I was having success. And the cool thing about it is after every start, me and Cal and Chris would sit down with a couple of adult beverages, and we would talk about, okay, this is why I wanted to throw Paul Molitor this pitch in this situation. This is why we threw Dave Winfield this in this situation and not that situation. So what it did was it sped up my learning curve at the big league level where I could have somebody, because if you go back to those staffs, there wasn't any veteran guys on those staffs. There was a lot of young guys like me, like Pete Harnish and Kurt Schilling and Dave Johnson. A lot of guys, Jeff Ballard, didn't have a Bob Malachy, we didn't have a ton of experience then, and then Rick Sutcliffe came over the following year. Now I had a veteran pitcher that I could bounce stuff off of too, and that also helped speed up my learning curve as well. But Junior was big in me learning hitters, learning situations, and we would sit down and talk about it, and it's always good to talk about it. But Steve, when you go out and you experience it and you talk about it, the light bulb goes on. Yeah, that's what he was talking about, that situation. That's why he was looking for that pitch in that situation. So it really helped speed things up for me. And it wasn't because Junior was controlling. It was that he actually wanted to help, and he knew that me and Chris Hoyles needed help, and boy, did we ever. And it worked out good.
What a cool story. And as you said, young battery. The catcher was young. The other pitchers were young. So what a great place to turn to know. It also took pressure off both of you guys, and we don't have to know everything about this lineup tonight, man. We got a great resource right out there.
Yeah, no doubt. And the kind of player Junior was, right? He was always positioned in the right place. He knew the hitters as well as anybody knew hitters, right? Because he knew how to set up. And he always told me, because I'd throw a ball and it'd go by me on the ground. I go, "Gosh, that's in the hole." And I look at Junior's just standing right there and throwing it over to first base. And I'd always ask him in our meetings after, I said, "Why would you standing over there on that guy?" And he always tell me, he said, "You hit your spots and throw the ball where you're supposed to throw it, and I'm going to position myself." And he said, "I promise you, more times than not, I'm going to be in the right place." And he was. I mean, throughout his career, Junior wasn't, and we know the footwork was good, but he didn't move like someone, because he was so big, he didn't move. But boy, I always felt like from a mental standpoint, Junior knew the game better than anybody else, and he knew the players better than anybody else too.
That is so cool. Ben, one last thing. The Oriole fans have expressed to me numerous times how much they love you being a part of the team again and your broadcasting. You do such a great job of not only explaining what's happening on the field, but you really connect to the fans. I mean, what has allowed you to do that so smoothly with the Orioles?
I don't know. I mean, I always tell people, Baltimore, I was a kid when I got there. I was 21 years old. In a lot of respects, Baltimore is my second home. It's where I grew up and became a young man and well into my mid-20s. And so for whatever reason, I always hit it off well with the fans. I always enjoyed the fans of Baltimore. I love seafood and the crabs and the shrimp and all that. The crab cakes I fell in love with. But, I got some advice years ago doing some games when I first started from an older lady in the grocery store. She said, "I like the way you call a ball game. I said, because I was learning. And I said, well, tell me what you like about what I do. She said, you keep the game simple. She said, I don't understand and I don't watch a lot of baseball, but when I watch you, I understand what you're talking about. And I always took that to heart and said, you know what, we can complicate the game of baseball and we can talk about force balks and all kind of different things. But at the end of the day, it's really a simple game, right? You catch it, throw it, and you hit it. And I always tried to keep it simple where everybody could understand what we were talking about, you know. And I hope the fans in Baltimore like that kind of style because I'm a simple guy and I try to tell it the way it is. And my biggest challenge, Steve, you know this, sitting up in that booth, it's easy to forget how hard the game was. And that's always my challenge when I call a ball game, because when I'm sitting up above home plate in that booth and I got these headphones on and I'm looking at the game looks pretty simple, right? But then I take myself back to many years ago and I understand it's a very difficult game out there. There's a lot of pressure to play the game of baseball. It's a difficult game at the end of the day. So I always try to remember that's two of my biggest challenges is trying to keep it simple and remembering how difficult the game was.
Well, it was awesome for me at the time I got to work with you doing some radio, and I can't wait to watch and hear you again whenever we have baseball back. And Big Ben, thanks so much for being with me today. This has been awesome.
Steve, I enjoyed it. I look forward to seeing you again, and tell everybody back in Baltimore I said hello. Y'all stay safe, and we'll see you soon.